Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much indeed for joining us. My name is Ollie Matthews, and together with Sarah Burbidge and Kat Wildman, I am very proud to welcome you to the second episode of A Life More Extraordinary. This past year has put a lot of pressure on people's lives in ways that none of us have ever experienced. And these pressures have forced so many of us to rethink how we're spending our time and investing our energies. Even the language over these past few months has been really restrictive and negative. Lockdowns, remote, pandemic, infection rates, quarantine, distance. But the phrase that kind of really shook us into action was new normal, which is horribly, horribly uninspiring. If we're going to go through all of this and the best we can come out of the other side with is normal, then what on earth are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. The new normal, we all agreed that we were completely uninspired by it, and whatever variation on the new normal on that theme, we just found boring. And also, no one even wanted the old normal. So the old normal didn't work for everybody. And all we could talk about before this whole thing happened was that it didn't work for everybody, and we needed flex and we needed inclusion. Anyway, we all agreed, like Ollie said, that there are definite lessons to learn here. And so we don't need another pandemic in order to make us walk away from this and go, let's emerge into something better. Let's find something, you know, whatever we merge into needs to work for the majority of people or even everyone. So we wanted to hear real stories, real voices, real ideas. What has this lockdown unearthed? Some really amazing people, which we have gathered today and in the previous session. And, you know, have real conversations, unvarnished conversations, so people don't need to feel like they have to say everything's fine all the time if it's not. But equally, people can shout from the rooftops about really cool things that they're doing, however extraordinary looks for you.
So that's what we are doing today. And Kat, Ollie and I have been foraging in our networks, friends, groups, people we've met through lockdown, stories we've heard, people we've connected through LinkedIn. And we've brought you some really lovely, interesting stories, some excellent panelists actually today, and some incredible people you're going to meet. And also the audience, thank you for joining us. There are some really fascinating stories in the audience as well. So it's a really relaxed session. We love to see faces. People who are on the panel have got the Life More Extraordinary slide behind them, but do put your screens on if you want to share them, that's great. Do put questions in the chat, because your questions will be better than ours, and sort of like do feel that this is part of the conversation. So join in, it will be very relaxed. So yeah, just have fun. And the idea is that it does really represent this work-life collide as well. So you know, pitch in as much as you want with work or life or whatever it is that you feel you want to contribute. If you haven't put your 3 words in the chat of what a life more extraordinary is to you, chuck that in as well, because we're going to be using those a bit later. But without further ado, let's meet some of our panel and have a chat more extraordinary.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. So I'd like to introduce our first panelists, and I am very proud to be able to introduce an MBE. So we have joining us this afternoon, Mr. Rajinder Singh, MBE, and his daughter, Minreet Kaur. Good afternoon to both of you, and thank you very much for joining us today. I think you've already been out on excursions and adventures this morning, but can I just ask you guys, just give us a little bit of an introduction to your story, and in fact, it's a really inspiring story as well from the past year. Mr. Singh and Minreet.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. So I think it's a really strange story actually, because I look back and think I can't believe what happened has happened. So what happened is when we went into lockdown initially, so both my parents are in the vulnerable, like that group. So my dad's 73, obviously just turned 74. My mum's 69 and just turned 70. But I think for them, they're really active and love being out and about, you know, exercising, and they're not really ones to stay at home. So in that first week, I think, of lockdown, because obviously none of us were expecting it, and I think it was a real shock to the system. And I just thought, what can we do that's different? I saw the push-up challenge that everyone was doing, and I was thinking, this is a bit boring. Let's think of something else. So I said to my dad, because he likes skipping, I said, why don't we start the skipping challenge? And so we went to the allotment. He did a really short clip of him skipping at the allotment. And then that was the video that I posted on Twitter, and that went viral. Like everyone just kept sharing and commenting it on the video. I couldn't believe how, I mean, even now I'm just sitting here thinking, that evening when I came back, I was actually on my NCTJ, and I remember I was supposed to be studying, and I kept just looking at Twitter and thinking, oh my gosh, it's gone up to like this many thousand. Overnight, the video was still being shared, and then Sky News did a piece on it, HuffPost did a piece, and then it was the BBC that I actually did a piece for the BBC with my colleague Ben, because he said, look, there's a story here, you know, what do you think? And the really interesting thing is that was the first piece that myself and Ben did to show that in lockdown, this is how stories are going to be coming to you. So I filmed it all on my phone with Ben's guidance, and that story went viral. So it was kind of like a way to tell people in the media, look, here's a story that we've just done in lockdown. And it just traveled from there. And then my dad was just so humble about the whole thing. He was like, he's never been interested in the media or anything. It's me who's always said, I want to present, I want to report. He's not interested, and he's made it. He's everywhere. So that's what happens. It's a really interesting story, but he can tell you a little bit about how he felt.
Hello, and I always say, all religion I respect the way I do. God bless you. As I'm watching you, I don't watch a person. It look like God sitting into you. And that way, God bless you all. So as you said, I'm Rajinder Singh, and daughter gave me nickname Skipping Sikh. And
yes.
Really,
and that's now, like your daughter says, that's now gone viral, famous around the world.
Yeah.
But this is a blessing, and it is given my father. And since then, I was 6 or 7 when I started, and carry on until now, showing to no one. Only few person, my friend, they knew that how fit I am. So I done almost everything, exercise-wise, martial art, you name it, charity marathons, duty on airport, doing charity, cycling to Brighton and so on. This is in my lifeblood. That's what my father done as well. And I try my best until my last breath to do help other people's. I'm not God. I don't call myself. I always call myself, if someone call me like a old man or madman, or do this and that, I always say this is a blessing. And I always answer, God bless you, which is very difficult. And I love it when people meet me calling me rude words, then they're surprised how this person can answer us rudely for not saying, he's saying, God bless you. And they become my friends. So I love it doing such things. And I don't like a gossiping or insulting other people's. Things do happen. But every time when I talk to someone, I always say, God bless you, and do forgive me if I said anything wrong. And thus, I will try my best until, as I said, to do good things. Wrong things happen more than good things. And so if you don't show, you don't get respect, you don't get what you're doing wrong. But I love when people criticize, saying something to me, I don't get across, but I learn it. And that's what my policy is. And all of your blessing make me to do this. Otherwise, I don't want to do for, how can I showing off, or for money, or for anything. What I'm doing for this, like a NHS and doctor, nurses, teacher, police, fire service, all of them, they're doing their best. And if I can volunteer any work, and that's what I do.
Well, that's an amazing story. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh, and thank you, Minreet, for joining us today. Kat, over to you.
Well, that is an amazing attitude, and I absolutely love that. I try to do that, but I fail more than I succeed. But I will keep on doing it, Mr. Singh. Thank you so much. Sarah Stevenson is also a real life superhero in a different way. Sarah, would you like to tell your story?
Yeah, of course. Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me. And my story is a little bit kind of grave and a bit grim, but actually just to kind of headline that, I count myself as one of the lucky ones. So on the 5th of April, I was kind of feeling quite unwell and had been chipping away at my doctor for some time to kind of work out what the root of my kind of stomach issues were. And I had the unfortunate experience of having to kind of battle through the NHS, which of course was shut for business pretty much, wasn't able to see a GP, was kind of repeatedly bounced between people. And eventually I got a diagnosis of quite serious bowel cancer, which was obviously not what I'd intended to spend my my lockdown doing. I obviously count myself as one of the lucky ones because at this point, obviously lots of people who were midway through receiving cancer diagnoses, receiving treatment, which is, you know, kind of more often than not life-saving. You know, that part of the NHS shut down. But I was very fortunate in that I'm in employment where I had private healthcare. So by hook or crook, and also through having some, you know, kind of friends who knew surgeons, I was incredibly lucky to be able to get 2/3 of my colon removed, which was not particularly fun at the time, being in hospital with no visitors for 2 weeks, and obviously kind of everything was delayed and kind of removed, and I couldn't really see anyone. But essentially, you know, kind of going through a cancer diagnosis, struggling to get that cancer diagnosis, begging, borrowing and pleading to see people. Eventually I was treated. I had 6 months of chemo, and my lockdown has essentially been bookended by coming out the other side 2 weeks ago, getting the all clear. So obviously kind of what's been totally bizarre is I've obviously had this life-changing event, my family has, and yet there's many people who I haven't seen, and I've kind of had a cancer diagnosis and hopefully come out the other side, whilst, you know, all being, you know, lots of people's lives have changed, and, you know, my son certainly has as well, you know, for the better in some ways as well, I might add.
Yeah, amazing story. What a woman.
Incredible story.
Thank
you, Sarah, for being here to share it with us. Sarah and I did actually share A Life More Extraordinary back in university as well, so that's our connection. But I also want to introduce you to, I'm very delighted to have on the menu today actually a chef de mission, which is magnifique. What is a chef de mission? What does that mean? Phil Smith, you are with us today as well. Please let us know a bit more. Please tell me, this is something to do with the Paralympics. Are you making scrambled eggs for athletes? What is your role, chef de mission, and what has your lockdown been?
Hi, Sarah. Thanks very much, and thank you to everyone for joining today. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very humbled to be on this panel, actually, with such incredible people, and I can confirm that I am definitely not the chef for the team. They would not want my food, my cooking. So my name is Phil Smith. I work for the British Paralympic Association. We are the organisation that exists to take the British team to the Paralympic Games every 2 years, so summer and winter. I've been lucky enough to go to 5 Paralympic Games. I've worked at the BPA for 15 years, and the last games in Pyeongchang, which was the Winter Games in 2018, I was again very fortunate to be the deputy chef de mission, which is the sort of second in command, I suppose, for the team.
Like the sous chef, yeah?
Absolutely. A role which I will reprise in Tokyo, which was obviously supposed to happen this summer, but didn't. And then actually just before lockdown, the proudest moment of my career, I was announced as the chef de mission for the Winter Games in Beijing, which probably the easiest way of describing the transition from deputy chef to chef is that as deputy you get to make all the smart comments and have all the ideas of how the person at the top should be doing things, and then I will now be the person that has to actually decide what those things are that we do. So yes, nothing to do with cooking, sadly, or probably pleasingly for the athletes, but Yeah, very, very proud moment for me. And yeah, I hope that some of you on the call, I know at least one of you on the call, because I can see Andy there, who knows a bit about the Paralympic Games. You know, I've worked at the BPA for 15 years, as I say, and the first sort of 7 years of that, my career in the run up to London, the Paralympic Games was very much the junior partner of the Olympics. Not many people were aware of the Paralympic Games. Not many people could name you a Paralympian, maybe a Tanni Gray-Thompson or something like that. But in the 8 years since London, our world has changed, the world for Paralympic athletes, and hopefully those people with a disability and an impairment in the UK has changed as more people are aware of disability. We have, you know, household names now, athletes who get not only to be extraordinary on the field of play at the Paralympic Games, but also then get to do things like go on Strictly Come Dancing, or the celebrity Castle Not Jungle, wasn't it, recently? We had Holly Arnold from athletics. So I think Paralympic sport has come out of the darkness and into the light in the last 8 years, but the last 9 months or so has been something of a challenge, with the immovable object of the Olympic and Paralympic Games being moved.
Yeah, something of a mission, in fact, actually, probably to sort of like, you know, put everyone on pause, and that sort of being your kind of new reality. Brilliant. Phil, thank you all of our panel for being here. As I said earlier, do pitch in your own questions in the chat, your own comments, things that occur to you where you think there are parallels to what people are saying. It'd be great to bring that into the conversation. Do also feel free to pop your video screens on if you fancy joining in as well. That's great. But yeah, brilliant. But thank you to all of our panel. It'd be great to start digging into some of those stories then.
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind me jumping in, there's one of the things, I mean, I know the sort of the title for this episode is, you know, I get locked down, but I get up again. And there's 3 stories there about sort of, you know, unexpected situations, some good, some bad, some ugly, but then also that idea of creating something special, doing something special out of those challenging situations. And just continuing on with you there, Phil, I know sort of, you know, in our chats beforehand, there's a lot of people who have then would have been in that unexpected situation because of these changes to the scheduling of the games and stuff. How has that impacted people? How have then sort of you and the athletes reacted? And what are some of the interesting stories there that you found?
Yeah, I think it is interesting how people have reacted, Ollie, and you know, I think the reality is that there are extremes at either end of the spectrum. So as I said earlier, the games are fixed. They get announced 7 years before, and everything works towards those fixed dates. For us, it's 12 days of competition. They're announced the day that the games are awarded, and everything goes to those dates from that point. So whether that be for the organising committee of the games out in Tokyo, who had not only had their games postponed, but then actually it took them probably 3 or 4 months to actually just confirm that all of the venues and the athlete village would be available again this time next year. So a lot of the venues are privately owned, so had bookings for 2021. The athlete village that's built, all villages these days for games are built with legacy in mind. So they're built to be sold on to the public. So there were hundreds and thousands of Japanese people in Tokyo expecting to move into their new house, probably sometime in the new year in 2021, and that's all been pushed back a year. So the extraordinary logistical and operational challenge for an organising committee is huge. For us as the BPA, clearly, you know, we've got, you know, we've had flights booked, we've had all of the logistical and operational side of things to work with. We also, our world works in very strict 4-year cycles in terms of funding. So we're very reliant and have some fantastic corporate partners who support us every 4 years, but they obviously expect a bit of a payoff at the end of that, which is their name attached to the team at the games. And we're in a position where we not only had to go out to all of our brilliant partners and say, look, we actually need some support for an extra year, because this 4-year cycle is now a 5-year cycle. But also, how do you feel about supporting us for the next 4 years as well, even though you haven't had the payoff last time? So that's been a challenge. But I think the biggest thing has obviously been for the athletes and their support staff. They work towards those key dates. For some, it might be you know, a 5th, a 6th, a 7th Paralympic Games. For some, it would have been a first. For some, it will have been a last. And to have that thrown into the sort of chaos and confusion of everything being moved on a year is really hard to work out how you're going to deal with that, I think, because we'd already got to the point, you know, by the time lockdown kicked in March, the games were less than 6 months away. So that 4 years from the previous games that people had been focused on these dates with everything worked out to the absolute nth degree as to how they were going to be in peak performance on those dates suddenly get shunted a year. And so we've seen some extraordinary things happen. I'm going to keep saying extraordinary because it's pinned behind me, but it really does feel extraordinary.
On brand as well.
Absolutely. Because we found athletes who created training environments in their own homes. Now, for some, that's easier than others. So you might, if you're a rower, clearly you can't get in a boat at home, but you can get on a rowing machine, on an erg. You can do training at home. There were athletes setting up WhatsApp groups and Zoom calls for training sessions across each other. We had table tennis athletes with robots in their home feeding them balls so they could play. So some of it, you know, using technology and using the opportunity to train in a different way, knowing that everyone around the world was in a very similar position. So actually, how do we keep that little edge ahead of everyone else? And one of the things we always talk about at the BPA is being the best prepared team when we go to the games. We want Great Britain to be the best prepared team, better than anyone else. We know the environment better. We've got relationships in the host country better than anyone else, and that our athletes and staff are best prepared to go out and thrive in the games environment. And I think one of the things that we have realized over the last 9 months is that best prepared for next summer in 2021 will look actually a lot different to what it might have done this summer. And actually, maybe we've started to change our language a little bit towards better prepared. So can we be better prepared than everybody else? We might not hit what we would say is our normal gold standard for going into a games, but actually, if we can be better prepared than any other nation, then we should be able to perform out on the field of play.
There you go. You heard it here first. BPA stands for Better Prepared Athletes.
Beautiful. I'm going to take that away.
Yeah.
While you're the chef de mission, you make me want to go and start being better prepared and get on like with some exercise. Very, very inspiring. I've got a question on that particular topic for Minri and Mr. Singh. You must have touched so many people's lives with your story. Is there one thing in particular that really got you, you know, that really you just thought, wow, this is a great thing to do?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was that the story obviously reached a global audience. So for me, it was when people were saying, oh, I've got a skipping rope and I haven't skipped in years. So I actually went to find my skipping rope. People were looking to buy skipping ropes. Skipping ropes had actually sold out in the UK because we were trying to buy some. And in the shops that I went to, they had sold out. So it was that all people of all ages had just got involved in the skipping challenge, and even those that couldn't skip started to skip, and it was from young to old. So the youngest I think was a 3-year-old, and the oldest was someone who's in their late 70s, 80s, something like that. So I think it was that, and I think the one message for me was how people had messaged in to say that you were the highlight of lockdown. Even to this day, people say that, and that's a big thing. I think that is such a big thing for someone to say that I think to myself, you know, like when sometimes you do feel a bit low and you haven't got that motivation, sometimes it's hard to look at people to motivate you. And to know that my dad did that for people, it just made me think, wow, do you know what? That actually is amazing. Like if people in this difficult time are feeling quite down, quite demotivated, which is understandable. Here's someone who's inspiring them. And I think that then encouraged me to do more in terms of social media. And I set up his YouTube channel for him. And we just did loads of different exercises. And it wasn't really for people to say, look, follow them, because obviously we're not medically, in terms of, I haven't got, and my dad isn't a fitness instructor like Joe Wicks, but it was just really to say to them, do something, whatever you do, stay safe, but just stay active and use the stuff that you've got at home, so like water cans. A really funny thing is, as Punjabis, we make chapatis. So we've got flour that you could pick up, the flour bags or the rice bags, or how you make the chapatis. It's like just silly things that we had at home. My dad had a tyre in the garden. We used a tyre as a weight. So I think that is the biggest thing that I've taken away, is that, to know that someone has inspired and motivated millions of people, that if there's one thing I'm going to take away from this more than anything, it's not really about the amount of money that you earn or the job that you're in. I'll tell you, there's one thing that is just seriously priceless and just selfless, is to do something for other people. Like, it really is. If you can put a smile on someone's face and you're making millions of people smile, I mean, honestly, I think that's the one wish I could really wish for, is that really to give back to other people, because you come in this world, you're going to go from here. Why not live this life for other people? Because I think that's the most amazing thing anyone could ever do. So that really touched me, and I just thought, wow, like, it just made me think about life out of lockdown and what I would want to do going forward, because it's nice. I think this is going to be something that obviously it's come and it's going to stay with us. COVID isn't going anywhere, but it's something that people will look back on and say, oh, do you remember this, or do you remember that? And it's just nice. As a Sikh, I feel quite proud that my dad wears his turban, he's got his kirpan on the side, and he just went out there as he looked, so it got that awareness out there of who the Sikhs are as well, which I thought was really nice. So we don't really get to hear much from the community, and this is such a positive story, so it's brilliant. Really, really good.
Absolutely fantastic. I can totally see Mr. Singh as the next Joe Wicks.
Thank you.
He was Mr. Singh, definitely.
I really can't compare with the new one. I always say everybody is better. I'm not just saying on a camera, but this is my policy. Another thing, everything I try not to buy anything expensive. If I buy food or anything, I always think you must give penny or 10 pence and get for cheap things. The rest of money go to charity. This is in my life a lot. Like sports, first thing always to God. Second, sports. Third, respect ladies, what color is, regardless color. And then obey law and orders and try your best. This is a policy I try. I always fight among my brain. There's one brain saying, you do it, you steal it. The other one saying, no, don't steal it. And then always, my daughter and Mrs. ask, you always quiet. I always quiet, but in my mind, always fighting left and right. You just upset your daughter, you upset your wife, you done this wrong. And I don't swear from mouth, but in my mind, oh, look what you done wrong. You have not fed birds. Look, bird is fighting. Bird is doing this. This kind of things, rather wasting my time somewhere else, fiddling around, damaging things, and hating other people's. I always think, no, hope you don't do anything wrong. I'm so busy in this way. And I always quiet, and people think I'm miserable. Laughing from a mouth is different. Laughing inside, always try your best to help other people. This is the best policy I try my best to adopt. Then I always need blessing. People like you all around the world. We can live peacefully if we respect each other. I respect a God. In this situation, people think this is a very terrible thing. As I think, this is nothing what I seen in my life. I seen a fight. You have to go 2-3 weeks, no food. You can't go out, no electricity, 45 centigrade heat. I went through when I was very young, 7 or 9 years. So many things I've seen in my life. My parents my father get killed, my brother someone poisoned, I'm still surviving and still helping other people. And I forgive them who they thinking bad things about us. They realize that like my father is not there, my brother is not there, my mother is not there. Then they realize what we done with this person, he still respect us. This kind of a person, what more example I can give? But sports, I love sports. I love honest people. And I wish all people try to teach me so I can be a better person tomorrow. This is my wish.
Mr. Singh, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and your thoughts there. You've also really inspired people with your skipping message of well-being, and I can tell you in the chat that people are commenting that they have skipping ropes on their Christmas list, so thank you for that, and that you have really inspired people. Lots of chat too about that kind of, you know, setting up the living room and having to sort of like, you know, turn things around. We've also had a lot of response, Sarah, to your story. So I wonder if we can put some dig into that a little bit more. But I know Joy is asking here in the chat about, did you feel robbed? Obviously you were like thrown into such a strange scenario, such an awful situation. Did you feel robbed of being able to deal with this in a normal world? What was it like?
Good question. And actually, I think a surprising answer for those people that perhaps know me. So I'm a kind of resident extrovert, love people around me, always need to make connections. And I've kind of gone through life thinking that that's the way that I get through everything. And actually, the sanctuary that lockdown gave me to kind of repair and recover was actually quite magical in some ways. And I never thought for a million years would I say that. And it provided me kind of a restorative space, which I perhaps wouldn't have been afforded, because I would have been piling my, you know, kind of my between naps and, you know, God knows what, you know, with things like, you know, social visits, you know, kind of picnics, and probably trying to do too much, quite frankly. But no, I was able to recover in my own space, and I think come to terms with my diagnosis, which is perhaps what I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. I also didn't get the FOMO, that is something that I unfortunately suffer from. You know, quite a lot of this kind of fear of missing out, and obviously I didn't really miss out on anything at all. But I think one of my kind of most surprising kind of findings or reflections was that actually lockdown and the way in which the workplace changed actually enabled me to be treated like an equal. So I'm a business psychologist. I spend lots of time talking to clients. I'm very kind of client facing, and actually not having to, you know, provide an excuse why I can't do that. You know, I was able to work on Zoom, you know, I wasn't having to commute, which meant that effectively I was able to work like everyone else, and no one that I didn't want to know needed to know about my diagnosis. So actually for me, it really kind of leveled the playing field, and you know, and it really made me reflect that actually it's, you know, it's been really quite good for equality, and that's kind of equality around all round, as well as having, you know, being held back from, you know, by having a, you know, a temporary disability as well.
That is absolutely amazing that you were working during that whole period and keeping it all together. My question to you, when I have first heard your story, and it's resonated with so many people in the chat, but how did you manage to keep, like, how did you get yourself into that positive space? Were you there already, or did you have to work your head around it?
Good question. And I think it's, you know, firstly sitting with it. And I think that, you know, I'm a slightly kind of bury my head in the sand type of person. I'd rather not deal with the bad stuff. I'd rather kind of fill it with good stuff. So, but actually kind of slowly taking time. And I think that, you know, kind of whilst I, you know, wasn't obviously having loads of social face-to-face dates with people, I've got an incredible network of people. And I think that, you know, people were surprisingly good, in fact. And, you know, people that I never thought would, you know, necessarily think, you know, 2 or 3 times about, you know, kind of what I was going through, really put their head above the parapet. And, yeah, and I think that kind of, you know, that gratitude that you get is, you know, it's greater than the sum of the parts. And adding all of those bits together when you're feeling cared for and you're feeling you know, kind of in people's thoughts, that has its, you know, a positive side effect of, you know, just lifting your spirit. So I think having the connectivity with those people that you expect and also the unexpected ones as well really helped.
Yeah, totally inspiring.
There's another question actually from Joy again, but I think it's quite interesting, sort of building on that point there. And Phil, this is directed at you. Thinking about the disruption to the routine and the constant changes that a lot of the athletes, and I guess your team, have had to go through. Do you think that there's a large negative effect on people that will actually last beyond the games, or are there sort of plenty of positive stories coming out as well?
It's a really interesting question, and I think the reality for probably all of us, regardless of what we're talking about today, is we don't really know. You know, I will answer the question in a second, but just from a really personal perspective, I moved house a couple of weeks ago, and moving house is a really stressful thing at the best of times. And I realised when I went through it how little I had in reserve, how little resilience I had. And I had no idea that it was coming until I sat in a house that, you know, 24 hours after we've moved, when you go from order to complete chaos. And I thought, I have nothing, I have no resilience. And I ordinarily think of myself as quite a resilient person. And the only thing that is different is the way we've spent the last 8 months. And so I think that was it was almost a bit of a wake up call for me to thinking about how it might affect people, individuals, and obviously from my work perspective, from athletes and staff, that people just don't know it yet. But I think to your question there, and about, yes, there've been some negatives or challenges, but there are also opportunities. So we've had athletes who've missed out on the opportunity to go to the games because they've retired now. Now that could be for a variety of reasons. Some athletes were already coming to the end of their career and had got you know, the final day of the games penciled into their head, probably for the last 4 or 5 years, of I do not have to get up and go training anymore after that date. And just the prospect of doing it for another year was just too much. We've seen it on the Olympic side as well. But the flip side of that is that actually there are athletes who weren't going to be ready for summer 2020 because the games was going to come around just too fast for them. And so they would have been looking at their first opportunity to go to games would have been Paris in 4 years' time. But actually an extra year of training out of their bedroom or their garage or whatever it is, and that extra little bit, especially for younger athletes, that little bit of more maturity, that little bit more physical growth, it potentially means that they might go to the games in 2021 and actually do something incredible where they wouldn't have even gone to the games if they'd happened this summer. So I think, yeah, definitely a couple of takeaways for me in the last few weeks have been that thing about personal resilience and just not being aware of how the last few months has hit all of us, but also something around the fact that I spent most of the first probably 6 months talking about the challenge of lockdown, the challenge of the games being postponed. Everything was, and I had a negative, all my language and everything I was thinking about was negative. But actually, what it took me quite a long time to realise, but as something that I've tried to work on, making myself and those around me look at, is that actually there are opportunities to come out of this as well. And actually there are things that we can do with an extra year for the games in Tokyo that we wouldn't have been able to do. And so, you know, looking at what is best prepared, what is better prepared, there are actually areas where we could be better than we were this year. And so the games being cancelled gives us an opportunity. And similarly so with my chef's hat, figuratively on at least, that I would have expected, and we would have expected, to have 18 months normally between a summer and winter games. There's 180 days now. So my initial reaction was one that I wasn't as good on the not swearing and not controlling myself very early when I realised that was the case. But actually there are opportunities we can plan 2 games in the same part of the world almost concurrently, and take massive learnings from one straight into the next one. So yeah, it's difficult. There are challenges, but there are also opportunities, and I think it's really important not to forget that.
Yeah, I really think that's interesting. We've had some comments in the chat as well around this, around building in the time to help you accept what you're going through, and also make those plans for sort of going ahead and recognizing that it could be better. Sarah, can I just briefly touch back on what you were saying around that as well? Because I think, are you going to build in more time in your life? You said you're hugely, obviously I know you're hugely extrovert, that's why we obviously aspire to always living in this weird way, and don't necessarily thrive in a lockdown way. But have you learned from that, you know, from what you've had to go through? Are you going to be building in extra time? I mean, you know, am I losing my going out buddy here, or what's going on?
No, don't worry, you're not losing me, but I might be drinking a little bit less. But no, I think actually, you know, kind of lots of, you know, the conversations around, you know, kind of the Zoom drinks that we've had is, oh, what are you going to do differently afterwards?
Yeah.
And I think lots of people were kind of saying, do more of X, do more of Y, but mine's actually do less, you know, and I think it's, that question wasn't set up at all, actually. I'm not sure Sarah knew what I was going to say there, but, you know, I think for certain personality types, it changes. And, you know, I'm a planner, I'm future focused. I've always been fixated on the next holiday, that, you know, the next dinner. You know, I'm constantly thinking about how can I maximize my life? How can I enhance it? How can I make it better? How can I put the cherry on the top? And I've always planned and planned and planned. And of course, you know, for two large reasons, lockdown and cancer, those things, you know, those plans have obviously gone somewhat askew. And but actually, yes, it was annoying when the holidays were cancelled, but actually it's kind of, you know, I've learned that, you know, and I think when your mortality, a light is shone on it anyway, you do learn to appreciate the smaller things. And, you know, and actually, I've really enjoyed the last few weeks. I've really enjoyed lockdown because, and I mean, first, obviously getting an all clear diagnosis has helped enormously with that. But secondly, I enjoy going to the coffee machine and getting a drink. You know, I feel so much more grateful for just the small things. I enjoy stroking my cat, you know, taking my dog for a walk. You know, I enjoy thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner that day, not what restaurant I'm going to go to in 3 weeks' time. And so it's very much kind of, you know, the whole mindfulness, living in the moment, being appreciative of you. I know it's kind of really cliched, but I've you know, been completely dragged into that, you know, what's right in front of me, not what's way out in front of me.
There is a real truth in that, and we definitely felt that in our first session actually on Life More Extraordinary. And I know that Lauren Griffiths, who we've just recorded a podcast with actually, that will be going out on our social media sites. I can't believe I just did an advert. Anyway, but no, that really resonates, Sarah, that kind of truth of kind of, you know, being able to express gratitude. I know Lauren keeps a gratitude journal, who we were speaking to in our last seminar and things like that. We're also seeing this coming up in some of the chat. Min, the simple things in life. I mean, as Sarah was saying, you know, enjoying a coffee, enjoying, you know, stroking a cat, taking that time out. Did you ever really think that this kind of, you know, idea of skipping every day was going to just blow up like it did?
No, I think I still feel now, I look back and I was just saying to myself the other day, it's 8 months now, maybe even 9. I can't believe, no, not at all, Sarah. Even now that you're asking me, I just find it really, I'm trying to think of what to say, except for the fact that no, because people skip, right? I never thought that would, you know, that would go as global as it has, but also the fact that, and you know this, being in the media industry, that stories, they can kind of go up then and they drop really quickly, right? They don't normally last for as long. It's lasted for the whole 8 to 9 months. And even this morning we went out and did a Skipping Sikh Santa thing with his outfit, and everyone's like, this is the cutest Santa that we see. And it was just funny. So I'm just always just thinking of little things to add to the skipping, but it just seems to be that that he's touched hearts. And I think it's that he's at his age. I think the biggest thing actually probably was this as well. Someone at his age is showing that age is nothing but a number. You know, he's never been to the gym. He's got a very simple diet. So, you know, just like what Sarah was saying about living in the moment, my dad has always been that person of, he's never really wanted anything extra. Never wanted anything extra, never wanted anything less. So I think in that sense, I think it's just, it has been something that I think has definitely, for me, has made me realize that how important it is to live in the moment, but just being simple, like living a simple life and being just simple and happy with where you are. So no, I never thought that it would travel, or that it would travel as far as it has, and that it would continue. But it's a good thing, because it keeps you busy and it keeps you in a positive state of mind.
Yeah, and I think there's a real beauty, isn't there, in that simplicity as well, and that, you know, you found real community in that message as well. Yeah. I mean, MBE and Asian Media Awards Report of the Year.
Yes, so that's the other thing. Yeah, I didn't even mention that, but thanks for remembering that, Sarah. Yeah, so
available as a publicist.
We won Report of the Year. So this was the first report that I did in lockdown, and obviously a huge thank you to my colleague Ben, because it wouldn't have been possible without him guiding me. But we won Report of the Year for the Skipping Sikh. So that in itself is something that I'll always remember. I don't think I could think of a better story to win Report of the Year, because I know what I put into it. And I genuinely, I mean, I wasn't working, I didn't have a job, right? So at that point, a lot of people were, and I can understand, it was very much a very difficult time, and it still is. But you know, I could have sat there and thought, oh, I'm not going to do anything. But it was something that kept me going, and it kept me motivated. And to know that I won Report of the Year and I've got that in the house, a Skipping Sikh on it, it's amazing. It's just really amazing.
Min, do you think I could do something really cringy, just as a between reporter?
Yeah.
Could we ask Mr. Singh if you would please bless us with some live skipping?
Yeah, of course, we've got the rope ready.
I just thought it's a bit of an exclusive Life More Extraordinary opportunity. We shouldn't pass this up.
No problem.
That would be incredible.
Right, we're just going to set it up to
okay.
Yeah, I'll just make sure it doesn't. Oh, then
I would be the only person on the panel rude enough to ask. So
no,
sorry.
I think it's a good thing. Are you all going to join in with the skipping rope?
I was just going to say that. Yeah, our kids skipping rope.
Hand. I think it's important to take a break from all these Zoom calls sometimes.
Can you see it from there? Is that all
okay?
Yeah,
that's great.
I might be able to go. That's okay, isn't it? Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is cool. There we go. We're going to have live skipping. You never expected this to happen.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, ready?
Thank you.
Archer forward, Torja. That's fine. There you go.
Amazing. I actually wondered if we did a skip off right now with Mr. Singh and literally anyone else on this chat, maybe Phil would be able to manage it. But I think I would have given up like 10 skips ago.
Kat, I can just about walk, let alone skip. Seriously, wow.
That's amazing. And it's really joyful to see, isn't it? And people are reacting in the chat as well, saying, you know, there's been so much we can't do. It's really heartening to see things that are doable and achievable, like picking up a skipping rope, you know, incredible. Wow. Ursula says, wow. Ruben says, amazing stuff. Lou Roby says, incredible. Yeah. Sophie Coulthard loves it. Love it. Brilliant. Thank you. That's amazing and a bit too good. Wow. Thank you.
Really inspired everyone to start skipping. I wonder if we've got another superstar in the audience somewhere. Do we have Hinesh?
Hinesh, you didn't Hinesh take the media a bit by storm?
Come on, Hinesh.
Hi there.
What's your story? Tell us your lockdown story.
Oh, it's a bit strange. I went to where the kids are hanging out, which was TikTok, back in the early start of lockdown, and it was purely a bit of fun. I wasn't working throughout the entire of lockdown 1, and I started just playing around on TikTok in the early days, just purely for fun and for something to do. And then one day out of the blue, I uploaded it to Instagram, and then I got just a massive hit from everyone that was still working, and people and then it became a thing on social media. And Sarah knows this, that every day throughout the entire of lockdown 1, give or take a day or two, I was uploading some sort of craziness of whatever could float around on social media, and these TikTok videos just went off on one, and I was just I'm much of an introvert, to be fair, and I'm quite shy, and I don't know where this thing came from, but it was just one thing after another, and videos just started growing. And I live in a flat, so most of the time I actually had to keep the windows closed, like the blinds closed in the lounge where I was filming this stuff, because otherwise, from an outside perspective, I'm guessing my neighbors would be wondering what the hell is going on over there.
What sort of films were you? What sort of things were you filming, Hinesh? I mean, you were inspired, weren't you, to sort of take on some sort of Kardashian-esque and some kind of, other sort of like...
Yeah, there was the Kardashians, there was the great Gemma Collins at one stage, there was Cardi B was quite a big hit online, and thanks to her...
You with Pudsey Bear, didn't you?
I did one with Pudsey Bear as well, which actually I think I got from my old days of being at the One Show back in the day, and that still sat with me after 10 years or something. So that finally got some use out of it. So yeah, it was a weird thing, and ever since then it was just, I think it's increased a little bit of confidence in me, I've got to say. So yeah, that was my full-time thing of making these videos, because I didn't realize how much time it took to film those things.
Brilliant. I have seen one. I could not stop watching it, and then my kids came over. I can't get TikTok because I will literally just fall into a vortex of TikToks. I can't seem to press the button which takes you off it, because they just keep coming at you. But my kids were like, "Mummy, let's watch that one again with the phone and the bear dancing." They loved it. Where can people find you if they want to have a look?
My name is just_Hinesh.
And we'll share it on our Life More Extraordinary Instagram as well.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great, as we were with the Skipping Sikh as well. So yeah, it's great to hear these unlikely viral sensations, and awesome work, guys.
There's a comment from Andy just in the chat that I just thought was quite nice. I think it touches on a couple of things that come out through the session today. Andy says he interviewed an American Paralympian this week who said something brilliant that has stayed with me. And this is what he said: "I'm working hard on being where I am while I'm there." And there's something that's sort of come out quite nicely today through a lot of the stories. It's about that idea of taking the time to be present and not thinking or worrying or trying to overplan the future, because actually this is if anything, has shown us that's kind of hard to control and can so easily be changed and taken away from us in different ways. So that sort of idea of being present, I think, is really great, quite special. But there's something interesting as well there about the idea of like, I'm having to work hard at doing that. Because I think as well, it doesn't come naturally to a lot of it. It certainly doesn't come naturally to me. I'm always trying to think about, what should I be doing, or why am I doing more? Why am I achieving more? Why am I being more successful, or things like that. But actually, the idea, you should try and be present, but actually, it's quite an effort to shift into that mindset of being present and taking that time for yourself in the moment. So that was something that stood out to me. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I just wanted to, on the note of social media, just draw everyone's attention to the fact that we are on social media, and you can follow us. And we have been doing 11 questions of lockdown, living La Vida lockdown. I can never say that right. And Sarah did have a little thing of Ricky Martin behind her, and I remembered that I used to quite like him. But we've been asking our panelists their 11 questions about living La Vida lockdown. There he is. Oh, Ricky.
There's Ricky.
And so yes, please do have a look at our social media and our website, where we'll be posting the recording of this session and our previous one and ones going forward, as well as podcasts from our amazing panelists where we get more detail from them and hear their incredible stories. I wondered if Ollie was going to play a little snippet of some of the 11 questions.
Yeah, let's try and do that right now. So
it's the tech test.
It's the tech test. So let's just see if this works.
I am very ready. I have had almost all year to prepare for this. pun, because I had never watched The Sopranos before, which was, I mean, what a gift to myself it was to have the whole of that to watch in early lockdowns.
It's morning time, and morning time was always something that I enjoyed, but now I find that I can make the most of that morning time.
Trying to stop apologizing for how I look, for not being camera ready, for not having makeup on, and just be myself. I'm scared, I'm confused, I'm tired, but I'm hopeful.
No, like everyone else, it depends on which day you catch me on. There has been days where I'm like, oh, I've had enough of this. And then there's other days, I'll be honest, there has been elements of it that I've really enjoyed. So
I think 2021 will continue to be a little bit scary, but full of surprises and tremendous growth.
Both, with an exclamation mark.
A weird one, because I've had a bit of both, actually.
Physically fatter, mentally fitter.
What gets me through it is gratitude, and I feel very, very lucky to be in the working world that I'm in, and I feel very lucky to be as privileged as I am.
Gin.
Thank you ever so much to all of our amazing guests, and for Phil for sharing that story of the kind of Paralympics on pause turned into potentially an opportunity, and that amazing kind of catchphrase, the BPA is now stands for better prepared athletes, and for the well-being and wisdom of the Skipping Sikh, and not just surviving but actually potentially thriving. So thank you, Sarah, for that story and the incredible turnaround of your diagnosis. So fantastic to hear. Thank you everyone, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Life more
Take care.
extraordinary.
Bye.